I'm Mandy Sanghera and I'm a human rights activist who's been supporting vulnerable adults, people with learning disabilities. I've been doing lots of advocacy work, I've done a lot of consulting, I speak at a lot of national forums, and also I was one of the founders of the Forced Marriage Unit and been involved in making sure that people with learning disabilities were not missed off the whole agenda of forced marriages. So been a big campaigner for the last 24 years. The guidelines that have come out for professionals that actually the Ancraft Trust have been involved in writing and responding. It was a round table of professional organisations and myself being involved, sharing our experience. So actually putting it on the agenda, I think that's something that it's only sort of taken part in the last 15 years that actually people are starting to take abuse of vulnerable adults seriously, because actually sometimes people didn't always have the resources, professionals didn't know how to deal with certain crimes or didn't recognise it as a crime or recognise it as abuse and kind of put it as, oh, it's a cultural thing. So actually, by having no secrets, having the guidelines have been really paramount to actually protecting vulnerable adults. Education's really key, raising awareness. So these are like real big factors. And actually also supporting families to say to them, actually, do you know what, a forced marriage or marriage is not a solution. You need to be accessing services. We need to be promoting independence. Some people with learning disabilities can actually live in a tenancy. So there's a lot of work being done at grassroots. Frontline practitioners are key, but actually managers have to be supporting frontline practitioners. So if a social worker or a nurse or an OT kind of comes across a case and they suspect it to be a forced marriage, the safeguarding boards, whether it's children or adults, need to take that seriously. They need to have a multidisciplinary meeting and have a roundtable meeting and decide and thrash out whether it is a forced marriage, is it a safeguarding issue? Because forced marriage is a safeguarding issue. It's not a cultural practice or a religious practice. If somebody with a learning disability or autism or mental health issues or another impairment is being forced into a marriage and they haven't got the capacity and consent, we need to be dealing with it as a safeguarding issue. There's a lot of work that needs to be done about educating professionals about cultural practices. There's things where people think actually if you're married, it's going to cure your disability. There's things where people think that a person with an epilepsy might be possessed by the devil. People believe out-of-date practices that somebody's put a spell on them. There's certain practices that, you know, families really believe that, and it's about dealing with that sensitively. It's about educating frontline staff, and education is key, and I can't stress that enough, really. There's an awful lot of need for advocacy support. We need organisations like Respond who are doing great work. We need other people with learning disabilities to share their experiences and their, you know, if they've been a victim of abuse, because that's very powerful. We need parents to be sharing their knowledge. So if you've supported, like a young lady called Rani who I've supported, her mum now comes back and says to me, Mandy, I would never have forced my daughter into a marriage if I knew that this was the outcome, that she would have suffered horrific financial and sexual abuse. So it's very important that parents and professionals kind of listen and take this issue seriously.